Suella Braverman is back in the news again. She doesn't seem to be able to wriggle out of it. Now she's questioning the government's plans for justice. The bill put forward by Alex Chalk, the Justice Secretary, in October is now running through the House of Commons with new sentencing plans which would uh, advise that a sentence under 12 months should be served in the community with litter picking or graffiti scrubbing or something of that nature, and that people should not be imprisoned in a system where there are not enough prison places to accommodate all the people who have been put into prison in the last 13 years. And Suella Braverman says how well she's done. But indeed, repeat offenders should be put in prison, even if their sentences are under 12 months. So somebody who has repeatedly been convicted of a motoring offence should be put in prison, she thinks. The bill as a whole, she says, misses the opportunity to bolster penalties for repeat offenders. This is misguided for several reasons. She says the number of criminals in our society is relatively small and comes from a relatively small group of repeat offenders. And she says that one particular criminal had 343 previous convictions, but had only received a community order and a fine for further charges of theft. We need to toughen up the law to deal with these career criminals. And I think I think she's being quite absurd. She's talking about toughening up clause 6 of the bill, which effectively bans short sentences, that is sentences under 12 months. And she says that the bill misses the opportunity to bolster penalties for repeat offenders. And I think unless the country is planning to build new prisons, this is an absurdity. It's not only building new prisons, it's engaging new and experienced prison staff to look after prisoners. And it's also trying to work out what prison is for. Is prison simply to restrain people and to keep them away from the rest of the community? Or is prison there to rehabilitate and to send people back into the community as better, reformed individuals? I don't believe that prison is there primarily as a deterrent against criminality, the ultimate penalty. She does. She likes the idea of deterrent. That's why she's got Rwanda. Rwanda for Suella Braverman, like Rishi Sunak, is a deterrent. But a threat of going to prison, if that is such a deterrent, then prisons would not be flooded with prisoners. We would have less people imprisoned rather than more people imprisoned if it acts as such a deterrent. It's not a deterrent. It's not a deterrent. Just as when we had a death penalty, that was not particularly a deterrent. It was just one of the possible penalties for getting caught. No. Prison has to serve the purpose of reforming the individual. Otherwise, it's not doing its job. Prison is like a late education. And if you go back to Charles Dickens, the central feature in A Christmas Carol is the scene at the end of the visit of the Ghost of Christmas Present, where Scrooge sees what he thinks is a talon or something, or poking out from under the ghost's cloak, and he says, he says, "What are they?" And and the ghost pulls back his cloak, and he reveals two small children. "Oh, are they yours?" says Scrooge. "They are man's, but they cling to me," says the Ghost of Christmas Present. "This boy is ignorance, this girl is want. Beware them both, but most of all beware this boy." Why? Because education is what is needed. And at the beginning of the novel, Scrooge is approached by two individuals who want to collect for charity. And Scrooge says, "Well, are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses?" "Oh, I thought they failed in their good purpose." And the people say, "Well, many would rather die than go to prison." "Well, then they better die and decrease the surplus population." And these words are repeated back to Scrooge by the spirit of Christmas present. So it is an intentional link. And for Dickens, prison is about poverty. Prison is about a lack of education. These two things go together. And so there is nothing to be proud of, as Suella Braverman says, about putting people in prison, about jailing people. Nothing to be proud of. In fact, if anything, that is a sign that our society is significantly less capable of dealing with crime. So her claim at the beginning of her article, despite the usual brickbats which are thrown our way, the Conservatives' record on crime is not without merit. Over the past 13 years, crime has fallen by 50% on a like-for-like basis. We now have a record number of police officers on the front line, and earlier this year, the Chief Inspector for Policing himself said that England and Wales are arguably safer than they have ever been. Or is it just that the police are not catching criminals and that the jails anyway are full to bursting? I don't think there's anything to crow about in overflowing jails, and I don't think an ex-Home Secretary who failed in the job should be criticising the people who are still ministers and who are dealing with the mess that she left behind.